And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're coming from. This is the Good for Business Show, and I'm your host, Michelle J. Raymond. And today we are going to be talking about how do you stay focused on LinkedIn to actually generate leads. And I'm joined by the wonderful Wendy Robertson from B2B Social Nexus. That was the most formal introduction that I've ever managed to get out. So welcome. I'm very excited to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Michelle. I'm really excited to be here. I'm in the audience regularly at the LinkedIn Live, so I feel very privileged to be on stage, as they say.
I love it. And this is the whole thing. Sometimes there's lots of people out there that I get to talk to in the background, and I'm like, hey, come with me. Let's go share this conversation. And you're one of those people for me who just has a wealth of knowledge about B2B marketing. But at the same time, you get sales, which makes you kind of unique out there in LinkedIn land. So you're not on one side or the other. Is that a fair, analysis?
Absolutely. I think I've worked for over 20 years in sort of B2B marketing, but I've had the great privilege to work alongside really amazing sales and revenue leaders and learnt, so much from them and luckily have worked really collaboratively with my sales partners. And because for me in B2B, sales and marketing have to work hand in glove. And so if you're not sitting at the table strategically collaborating with your sales leaders, there's a real disconnect. And so I am a marketer that loves sales. So
And I'm a salesperson that's learning to love marketing. So
there you go.
I realize the importance of it all. And what I'm working with my clients, it's the more people that you get to row the boat, the further and the faster we go. So how about we take the best of everybody and bring that out? So for people who haven't come across you, do you mind doing a quick intro, who you are, what you do, and how you help people?
Okay, so I'm obviously Wendy Robertson. My company, I'm a marketing consultancy. My consultancy is B2B Social Nexus. As I said, I've worked for over 20 years in sort of large corporates in B2B marketing, and I essentially bring what I've done inside organisations to my clients. My specialty niche, whilst I am a strategic marketer, my specialty niche is LinkedIn. So I got excited by LinkedIn probably back in 2013. We were implementing a social selling program in the organisation and we were being sort of trained by the LinkedIn team on Sales Navigator. And I looked at it and was like, this is totally awesome. And I think about the product, even LinkedIn and Sales Navigator back then in 2013 to where it is today, it is even more awesome. So I was building social selling programs and sales enablement programs, helping people build their personal brands, developing content way back then, but now I do it for clients. So whilst I think strategically as a marketer, but LinkedIn is my specialty. It's often why people will come to me.
I love it. And so what you and I always talk about it is how much LinkedIn can be done your own way. There is no one size fits all. There is no blanket rule. There is no, you have to be out in front or you can stay in the background or you have to comment or not comment. Like it's everyone gets to do LinkedIn their own way. And this is why I love chatting with you, because we share that common view of you got to find what works best. And I think that's where you shine with your clients is finding out what works best for each of those individual companies that you're working with. So I come from sales, but here's the confession. Until recently, I'd never even gone into Sales Navigator. I know, right? And so I had a look at it the other day, but I want you as the expert to tell me, what do you think of Sales Navigator and what do I need to know about it as someone that has literally just switched on a free trial?
Okay. So for me, Sales Navigator and LinkedIn are one thing. Like I can't imagine using LinkedIn without Sales Navigator. As I said, I've been using it since 2013. It'd be very odd for me to switch it off. So I've been switched on the whole time. But for me, it is, I think of it as it's like a CRM functionality that bolts onto LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is this really awesome, database, a professional database, global database, but there's a lot of information in there. But how do you get at that information? Just through the functionality of free LinkedIn. So Sales Navigator just gives you some very sophisticated functionality that enables you to get the best out of the platform. So for me, it is, so I'm surprised, but not surprised. So a lot of people have LinkedIn Premium. So there's sort of a premium that most people have, that we sort of, when we all set up LinkedIn for the very first time and put our resumes on there back in the olden days, one of the things was if you got premium, it gave you some additional sort of functionality. So most people, I would say, signed up for that and they think, I've got the premium LinkedIn, I'm set. But Sales Navigator has always been seen as something that is really only for salespeople. So if you're not in a sort of business development role, most people might see Sales Navigator and think, that's not really for me. Whereas I think of it as it's like saying, is a CRM only for salespeople? Well, that doesn't make sense, because it's a database that across all of your customers. So it's not only for salespeople, but that's often the way sales, because it's called Sales Navigator, it gets a bit pigeonholed. So for me, it is, I think of it like a CRM. Every function within an organization can make use of a CRM, and Sales Navigator for me is the same.
Yeah, and I think it probably needs a rebrand, right? It's beyond sales these days. Maybe back when it first started, sales was the thing and, the target audience. But with the way that marketing and social selling has evolved over time, those lines are just getting more and more blurred. So often the first thing that people would come back to me and say is, Michelle, do I need LinkedIn Premium? My answer is typically no. And I've just switched mine off recently because I was just paying money, even though I got like a 40% off or something like that. It's still paying money that I don't ever connect with anyone that's just viewed my profile. I don't use any of that kind of stuff. So I was like, this is just money that's been wasted. So to the people that say, for instance, it's, I don't know, $99 a month or whatever it happens to be for Sales Nav, is it worth it? Am I going to see my money back? How, what's your thoughts on that one?
Absolutely. So I think LinkedIn Premium is probably around 60, it's probably about $69 a month. And as I said, now Sales Navigator is maybe another sort of $30 or $40. But it's, I would say, 1,000 times more functionality than LinkedIn Premium. You can't even compare. So a lot of clients I talk to, I say, so for me, I only work with clients that are prepared to sort of use Sales Navigator. So I don't work with clients that don't, because for me, I can't help them with free LinkedIn. I can, but for
not
me,
to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I don't. I sort of, if they're not prepared to invest in that, then I probably, I don't work with them. But for an extra, so that $65 to $99 for me, it's just it's a critical investment, a critical tool that once you understand how to use it, as I said, a lot of people who say to me, oh, where has this been all my life? Like, this is amazing. Because most people, I think with LinkedIn, I get a lot of feedback from clients say, I don't have time for LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time trying to, do what I need to do on LinkedIn. And it's, for some people, it's like they've only got a finite amount of time. For me, Sales Navigator gives you a really filtered and really intentional sort of view of what you need to do, like your CRM. So your CRM, you're not trawling through your CRM looking for the latest next action you need to take on that target account. The CRM pops that up onto your dashboard to say, these are all the tasks that you need to look at for this week. Sales Navigator does the same thing. Once you set it up, right, it will give you the notifications that you want from the people or the organizations that you're wanting to engage with. And that can be for a number of different purposes, but you can go in and spend 15 minutes a morning just looking at specific activity for specific people, and then you're out. And you can save specific things that you want to act on and act on them later. So you don't necessarily have to do all of the activity in that time. And that's 15 minutes a day. I sort of say, well, most people spend at least that just trawling through the newsfeed in the morning, trying to sort of look for gold nuggets. And I'm like, well, you can find those gold nuggets and they're sort of saved there. You're never going to lose them. Whereas the newsfeed, you're a bit of a slave to the algorithm to see what is going to surface every day in your newsfeed.
Yeah. And so that's some of the things that I've been looking at. So as my, business is growing, my profile grows, the number of connections and followers I have grows, the systems that I used historically in my previous roles no longer work as efficiently and effectively as what they did back then. If you're going to scale a business, you've got to scale everything, and so how do I make things grow? How do I get my time back? Because as a small business owner, that's probably the number one thing that I have to keep an eye on is, where is my time going? So one of the things a concept you introduced me to was this concept of going into Sales Navigator to create some lists to stay focused. So I'm all ears. Shoot, tell me about this.
So at its core, Sales Navigator gives you essentially advanced sort of search capabilities. So you've got this, massive database. So how do I find a needle in a haystack? So based on the criteria that works for you, you can create very sophisticated searches on a number of different dimensions. And then once you've created those searches, you can save them. So you might say, I'm wanting to target, whatever the target criteria by role, by location, by whatever it is, but you can save that search. Then you're also able to save target companies and as leads, so target accounts and leads. So from those larger searches, you can then whittle down and say, okay, of these 1,000 people, there's maybe 500 or a small list that I want to keep track of. So you can create lists of all different types. So from a sales business development perspective, the obvious ones are target accounts, key decision makers within those target accounts. And so people think, oh, well, that's it. And I sort of say, well, what about all your key clients, all of the sort of key decision makers within your key clients? Wouldn't you want to know any role changes, any changes of key decision makers with your clients? Wouldn't you want to know every time they post content, anytime those key decision makers are posting content? Don't you want to get a notification about that? And also I say to organisations that I work with who often think of Sales Navigator, well, this is for my BD, my business development, the people that are out there, hunters, the hunting team. And I say, well, your competitors' hunters are doing the same for your target accounts. So you need to be on top, like they've got their best and brightest. So accounts, competitors, I say, well, who are all the competitor organisations and all your equivalent functional people of your competitors? Wouldn't you want to know what's happening in the market that you're operating in on a regular basis? So you can set up lists of competitors. You might be launching a new product and you want to just do some market research. So you want to see who are all the, who is producing sort of these products, or who are the distributors that I might be working with. Any sort of market research, you can basically create lists for those, and then they're saved. And then you can, and inside those lead lists, you can put notes. Depending on what level of subscription you have, you can actually, Sales Navigator team, you can actually share lists within your team. So someone might create a list, they can actually send it to everyone in the team. You might make some notes on all the leads, share that list with the team, and then someone else can act on it. They can make some notes. So, and then at the highest level, for some of my clients, they have a higher level of Sales Navigator that fully integrates with CRM. So, Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics are the sort of bigger ones, but there are certain levels of integration which then gives you incredibly awesome power.
So some of these superpowers, the creative ways that I could use this. So you should know, Wendy, full confession, I just have people like you on here so I can ask you the questions that have always been burning inside of me so that I can share. But I think one of them that you mentioned is it's an easy way, even if there's like, I'm going to call them my LinkedIn friends. So people that I enjoy their content, that I want to support. I would never have thought that, hey, Sales Navigator is a tool that I can make sure that I maintain relationships with my key supporters, because they're just as important to me as potential clients, people, past clients, all those kind of networks. One of the ways that I saw down the bottom, and again, there was like so many filters, so I can see how people could get a bit overwhelmed when you first go in. But I saw you could even find company page followers. And so I was like, tell me about some of the other things like that maybe I haven't thought about that people should consider.
Yeah, so there are like the various criteria that you can use to search and create lists on is incredible. And I think once you sort of understand that, then it's just let your creativity sort of guide you to sort of how you can leverage the tool. But I think as you said, so people think about clients and prospects, but in your case, you've got, I suppose, a community. You've built this awesome community, and once it gets very large, it becomes quite unwielding, as you've discovered, because you've become so popular. It's how do I kind of keep track of the people, the really important people that I've, for whatever criteria you want to segment your sort of community, how do you stay on top of everything that they're doing? But you might have new people. So people that have bought your book and who are engaging with you, you might want to sort of put them, if someone that said, okay, I bought your book, you might want to put them in a list. So when you publish your next book, you can, you might sort of give them the heads up to say, well, as a support of me, I've got a special offer for people who bought my sort of book previously. So you can create that, create a list on that. So, but people wouldn't necessarily think of Sales Navigator as having that functionality. So, as I said, it's as creative as you want to be. And even as, I talk about the competitor analysis and market research, for me is really awesome, because I've worked with sort of startups where they're sort of launching to market, and I say, well, let's spend the time to just do some listening of what's happening in the marketplace with competitors, with, key influencers that are, in the market, in the industry that you're wanting to sort of launch into. Let's just have a listen to what's going on, because you can follow the news, you can follow trade media, but it's hard to keep track of that. And often all of your media, all your journalists and all the media people are also on LinkedIn. So they're publishing regular news. So if you're wanting to see what's happening in financial services industry, what conversations are being had by the industry influencers in financial services, follow all the key journalists in that realm and watch what the articles that they're posting every day. And that can give you a consolidated media monitors type functionality without having to go to multiple websites to find those articles.
And I'm thinking about what you're saying here, and I'm thinking, okay, people say Sales Nav is expensive, $99 a month. So we're back at $25 a week. For most people, they're getting paid more than $25 for an hour. So even if we said at a bare minimum, you're getting paid $25 an hour. So for 1 hour, I think you're getting that back 10 times over by what you're saying, without having to pay for other subscriptions, by being smart around it. You're getting time back, which is going to far exceed that $25 a week, which is, when you look at it like this, it's a little crazy.
Yeah, I think it's the cost versus its potential value. But I think if you're not extracting that value, then it does seem like a lot of money to be paying each month. So I think you've got to kind of, and take the time to sort of investigate it. There is a sort of free, I think you get a 30 or 60 day free trial when you sort of sign up. So you can have a really good hard crack at it within that time before the first charge comes off your card. But even from I'm working with a client from a talent acquisition perspective. So people often think, oh, do I need to have LinkedIn Recruiter in order to do sort of recruitment? I'm like, well, you can do a whole lot of stuff on Sales Navigator. So, they're looking to appoint, a finance manager. So find all the key talent. You can either save them as a lead, you can reach out and connect if you want to build a relationship with the talent in the functions that you're wanting to bring into your organization. Reach out, shoot the job ad through. You might be someone that you're targeting, but you might say, is there anyone in your network that you think would be interested in this role? Sometimes you can do some soft outreach. So we've successfully done talent acquisition using Sales Navigator as a tool for organizations. And also from having your key sort of sales, your leaders, it's a way for them to also understand how they're sort of putting themselves out there, using LinkedIn as well. And even for people that are looking for the next role, I've been coaching a friend actually who's looking to find his next role, and he wants to be strategic about it. And I said, well, sign up for Sales Nav, find the organizations that have the cultures that you want to work with, find all the sort of hiring managers and follow them all, and listen and engage and start to build your brand within those organizations. I said, follow the company pages, follow them, the talent acquisition, but also the hiring manager of the team that you potentially want to join and the people within that team, and start to show up in there and, start to engage. Because then when your resume does come through for a role that's offered, people will be like, oh yeah, I know that person.
Exactly. It's so much easier. It's like that warm lead type of thing. And I love that you've expanded it into so many different other and creative ways, like we said that we were going to talk about. But one of the things that we said, so ultimately, if people, let's just go back to the example, small business owner wants to grow their business, and so we're being targeted around who we're connecting with. How am I going to use Sales Navigator to manage that pipeline? Can I do it? Or are you doing this offline with spreadsheets or other programs? Like, can I do it all within Sales Nav?
So depending on your sort of tech stack setup, so if you do have a CRM, there is potential to integrate. So if you're using a traditional sort of opportunity sort of pipeline within a CRM, then you might want to, at different sort of stages, you might have the two will talk to each other. But if you don't have a CRM and you're just saying, okay, I'm targeting these organizations, so you might create lists that sort of replicate that, whatever sort of funnel you have. So from a prospect to a, engage, whatever that funnel might look like. And then you can sort of create notes and keep track of people. And, initially at that top of the funnel, you're obviously using Sales Navigator to build those relationships. But even once if you're going through a tender process, for example, so if you're tendering for a new, and you might have a procurement person and one person inside an organization, you can then use Sales Navigator to do that full stakeholder map, to find all of the key decision makers and just look and listen around how you can potentially, because tendering is an interesting process. So sometimes you get to a point where communication inside the organization closed, but there's a sort of open period where you can start to build relationships with others who might be in that sort of buying group, and start to just subtly share value, share content, and build your brand. So when it comes to, of the 3 organizations that we've shortlisted, I know this person. I've seen they're really visible on LinkedIn and they're sharing lots of great content. So they're expert. You've marketed your expertise in advance of just relying on your proposal. So absolutely, you can use Sales Navigator for that purpose.
Because if I look back to, my key account management type roles in the past, there was, maybe an ideal client that we'd spotted, a new customer that we wanted to bring on board. And sometimes there was no direct route to get into that particular customer. Sometimes you wanted to deal directly, say, with the purchasing person, but you couldn't get to them because they are normally pretty good at being like the blocks. They've got people in front or processes in front where they don't take calls, they don't respond to emails because they're bombarded all the time. So sometimes it's about going around the back door or the side door, or finding someone else that may be active on LinkedIn that you can connect with them, who then they can make that introduction. So I think when I looked in Sales Navigator, I could see that it recommended people that I should maybe connect with. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that was really cool as well. And there's another, I'm going to give you 2 questions. One about how it recommends who I should connect with. And the other one was being able to find out who's active on LinkedIn and who's not, like who's putting stuff out there. So can you talk about those 2 little key points?
Yes. So when you save a target account, LinkedIn will sort of suggest these are kind of key decision makers based on their sort of role, title and function. They don't always get it 100% right, but it will show you these are all the employees and these is who we believe are the decision makers. So that's really handy because then you can sort of look at them and save the ones that you want to save. And because you don't want to be single point dependent in an organisation. And I've experienced this recently with a client where working on an opportunity, there was a really good relationship with a senior person in the organisation, had been working the deal for a couple of years to try and get a meeting. And we sort of said, let's look at the whole organisation, and found multiple sort of stakeholders within the organisation, outreach to all. Someone then forwarded on to someone else. We got an appointment, we got a meeting, and then the client signed up the next day. We literally compressed 2 years of, because that we sort of thought, well, we've got that relationship. You can't really engage with anyone else because that person knows me. And I'm like, well, yes, but what happens you've got to think about how people buy. That person isn't just thinking, okay, I'm deciding on what next new product we're going to buy or what next service. They're talking with their colleagues, and their colleagues are often on social, getting recommendations from their peer groups. There's all this sort of dark conversation that happens on social. So if you're visible through building, marketing your expertise to a range of people in an organization. Often it probably comes up on the agenda at a meeting, and someone says, oh yeah, I've heard of them. I've seen, that person, that business seems significant because I see them all the time on LinkedIn, versus someone else that doesn't have any sort of profile on LinkedIn. So it's absolutely important to use LinkedIn to look at everyone from an activity. So sometimes you can create your lead list, and across the top it will show you who's changed jobs in a certain amount of time, who's posted in the last 90 days. And both of those are really critical. So change jobs. So if someone's newly appointed into a functional role in an organisation, they're often a change agent. So they're coming in and they're going to often implement a new system. So that can give you a really awesome opportunity to say this organization's potentially, looking for new solutions that, and then posted content. Sometimes you can see of all the people, some people just are not active on LinkedIn. So they're not posting content, not to say that they're not listening and engage. Like they may be listening. There are people that listen, but don't sort of engage, but people that are active on LinkedIn posting content, they're doing it because they want people to engage with that content. So I look at CEOs that post content and they'll get sort of a couple of likes from staff members. And you're like, well, a comment, a well-written comment can have more impact than a post on your newsfeed, because they'll see that. And then sometimes you can look for a warm pathway to connect using that comment. So that is really, once you've created your lead list, it gives you these different filters that you can act on.
Yeah. So a final question that I have, is there a size business, or, judging what we've spoken about for the last half an hour, would you recommend it for small businesses? Is Sales Navigator the right tool for a small business?
Absolutely. So I'm a very small business. I'm a business of, me. So for me, I can't imagine if you want to be active and you want to be strategic on LinkedIn, even if you're a startup business, absolutely. I think it's essential. So, but the key, as I said, is to extract the maximum value for that investment. So the things that we've talked about today hopefully have opened people's minds to, I didn't really even consider Sales Navigator as a tool to help me do these things that I'm currently doing some other roundabout way. So it can save you a lot of time and deliver incredible value. So absolutely. Anyone that wants to really be serious on LinkedIn, I think should use Sales Navigator. But as I said, I'm a evangelist. I'm very passionate about Sales Nav. So
and I highly recommend to anyone that's watched this and been taken on by what, Wendy's saying, and you're like me and it's all ticking over going, yeah, maybe this is for me. Reach out to Wendy directly, connect with her. She can show you the ins and outs. Because one of the things that I think would happen is people would jump into Sales Nav, be overwhelmed because there's so many different things you can do on there. And then they go, it's all too hard, and run away. Invest in some training, invest in things, conversations, follow Wendy, connect with Wendy, reach out to her for training if, that's going to speed you up. Because for me, one of the other things, similar size business, two of us now, I realized I had so much in my head and also in my emails that when it came to bringing someone else on board, it was like, where do I tell Lil where to start? And so not having it recorded somewhere was fine when it was just me. But as I want to scale my business, having some kind of way of keeping a track of, as we said, all of those lists that we've created of the different styles of people that I want to keep in contact with, that's why all of a sudden I went, oh, Michelle, this isn't working. I was blessed when I was doing social selling, working for other companies. We had CRMs, we had all the tools coming out of everywhere. Someone went and spent $1 million on a new CRM system. Not going to happen. I don't need that level. But I realize now I need to make sure that I'm maintaining relationships even as my followers grow, which is great, but maintaining relationships is something that is entirely different, probably something that I miss in my former sales roles. And I can really see that this tool is the one that's going to work in the meantime. Because I'm like you, it's a LinkedIn specialty. So, getting the most out of it, I can see how it's going to work for small businesses. So I thank you for sharing all of your knowledge. And if people don't see it as an opportunity, I think that they should actually just reach out and connect to you you, because yeah, there's so much more that we could cover today, right? Is there
Absolutely.
one?
We've really scratched the surface only. So, but I think it's about understanding the first question I often ask people say, oh, I need to be more active on LinkedIn. I need to be doing this. And I just say, what's the objective? What are you trying to achieve? Because if you align your sort of strategy, I say develop the strategy right first, and then you apply that strategy to how you set up Sales Navigator, and then it makes perfect sense. But what your strategy, for example, Michelle, the way you set up will be very different to the way I set up, because what I'm trying to achieve is different to you, and every client is different. So it's just get that the marketer in me says, what are we trying to do? What's the objective? What's the outcome we're seeking? And then all of the activity will align behind that. And Sales Navigator is just that enabling tool. It's a platform that enables you to be smarter and more efficient on LinkedIn.
Well, on that note, I think that's the best place to end, because to be smarter and more efficient, what more could you want? And if this is a tool that is going to achieve that, and like I said, I've had a poke around, and for me, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I need to go and learn how to do this better. So thank you for scratching the surface with the listeners today. I appreciate you joining me. And like I said to everybody else, please do go and connect with Wendy so that you too can learn how to be smarter and more efficient. Who wouldn't want that? So it's been fun. Thanks heaps.
Thanks so much for having me.